Good morning, everybody. There are many times I'm quite sure that within yourself you can feel a presence saying, "Be my son." It comes unexpectedly. It rings with a soft, gentle love. It is never a reproof or a condemnation. It is always a sweet reminder. As if someone had tapped you on the shoulder and said, "Go that way. Be my son." And this is never spoken to the human self. Just as nothing God ever says to us is spoken to the human self. And that is probably why the human self rarely relates to much of what God is saying, or misinterprets what God is saying. God is speaking to the Son of God. God is speaking to your soul. God is speaking to the you that is the soul. And so, you'll notice that in all of the classes we have had or ever will have, there is never a word of how to improve our humanity, how to earn more money, how to do human things, because we do not wish to honor the unreality. And yet, you should realize that while our head is in the clouds, our feet are firmly planted on God's earth. Never think for a moment that it is meant for you to walk through this world in a state of poverty or in a state of bad health or in a state of need. Be my son, perfect as your Father, heir to all the heavenly riches, heir to all that the earth is, for the earth is the Lord's. But we're not talking about black soil or red soil. We're talking about the spiritual earth, the only earth. Your focus should be today, tomorrow, forever, the eternal experience of your divine self. And that brings you to the immediate need to accept the master plan for your soul to convert this world into the kingdom of heaven on earth. This world is here as the initiation for your soul. It is now going through its earth initiation. You should be living from the level of the soul which knows, this is my earth initiation. That's not the human, the mortal, the physical, trying to make a better life, but rather the soul, recognizing the divine plan that earth is here as it appears as the challenge, the initiation. And it is the function of you, the living soul, to fill the forms on earth with divine substance. That is your purpose. That is the purpose of this appearance called world. It is an outline in the mind which the soul fills with divine substance when you're living from that level and with that intent. It releases you from the need to be pursuing a life of fulfilling the human instincts, the human requirements. They are filled by our Father which knoweth our needs. Now we should get into more of an awareness then that there is something in us that survives every incarnation. The flesh passes, the flesh reappears. This may go back to the cradle of existence as man knows it. Before Atlantis, before Lemuria. It may go into the stars and the planets that are mysteriously unknown to man. It may go into areas called Hyperborea. There are many areas where you've already lived as a physical form but are unaware of it. And this goes back beyond all of them to before the world was. You should always instantly be able to return to the awareness of the I that you are before the world was, that which survives every incarnation. You should be able to, indeed you must learn to, live in that which always survives and not in that which perishes. What survives every incarnation? Your divine life, your divine spirit, your divine Christhood, your divine spiritual body, your divine soul. To live outside of these is to live in nothing, to live in mental images that perish. And to place your life in the hands of these mental images is to be decoyed into the nothingness of the world mind. And so we're shaking away from those things that have seemed so vital to us and exchanging them for the truth of our own being, which ever was, which survives every incarnation, and which is constantly being told by God, be my son. Be what you are. Now, in past work, we have all come to a place where, or at least some of us have, where we studied our never-born self. It had a function, a purpose, a way of drawing us back from the prodigal mind. Paul was speaking of regeneration by soul awareness when he said, be transformed by the renewing of the mind. You renew the mind at first by the knowledge of truth, but you find that is insufficient. And so you turn your mind over to the soul. And this is the regeneration of the mind by the soul, which being fed by Christ can now feed the mind. The Christ truth as living experience. And in our soul regeneration, we lose the idea of corporeal existence. We begin to experiment with our incorporeal self, which is though we call it a spiritual body, it is formless as we know form. And I would like you to find some way now to move consciously in your formless body, your formless self, unrestricted. To realize it is omnipresent. So that the moment you're in a knowledge of your formless self, you are in omnipresence. You go beyond these walls. You are incorporeal being. You are the sun, which lives in its immortal body. Get that feeling of incorporeal, formless life, formless self. It is what survives every incarnation. Lifespans come and go. New attempts to find your divinity. New attempts to find your permanence. But always your formless, invisible self is present, untouched by the passing parade. Feel it. Relax into it. With your mind you could not do it, but in your soul, with no human attachments, relax and abide in that formless self which is forever. Never born, never aging, never dying. Completely unfamiliar with germs. Feel that form where the world is seeing crime. And know that the form that is formless is there and not the crime. And finally, reach a point of believing it, knowing it. Reach a point of getting behind the veil of the crime, the disease, the lack and the limitation, the emotional disturbance. Get behind it all into the formless self and rest there. When your peace comes, you'll know how important it has been all these centuries to come to this place of consciousness. It is one of the secret places of the Most High. Someday, in a great moment of illumination, you will realize this formless self is indestructible, eternal in the heavens. You will even realize that it is the body of God. And you may be shocked that your formless self and the body of God are one. And when you realize it, you'll know you have never been separated from God and never can be. In your ever-present formless self, which was never born and never dies and never ages, you are in that body which is one with the Father. The deeper your realization of that truth, the more you are in soul awareness, the more you are released to the activity of the soul. And the freedom of living in the creation of God, where there is no material or karmic law. Where you are self-existent, self-fulfilling, where all soul faculties are functioning in perfect synchronization with the eternal plan of life. All this in your never born, formless self of pure spirit, here and now. And only in that self do you have the right to call yourself the Son of God. You have been given many experiences in this permanent self. You have died many times into the self of form and returned to it. You have perceived many mansions. Your function now is to abide in the self. Abide in the never-born self, not in the self that appears to have been born into the world. And from the never-born self will flow the love, the joy, the ecstasy, the substance which transforms the visible world for you into the Garden of Eden. But only when you are living in that never-born self. For then I come quickly. What takes you out of it? The activity of the human mind. You say, well, it's not really the activity of the human mind. I heard a car crash, or I felt a pain, or I was reminded that at 3 o'clock I have to be at the dentist's office. But you see, those are activities of the human mind. Everything you do humanly is an activity of the human mind. Walking, thinking, feeling, perceiving. These are mental activities. And although it has been very difficult to accept certain truths, from your soul level you can do it. For instance, the one truth I'm thinking of is this. We once had a marvelous exercise that was very difficult to follow. It went along these lines. Everything you see today is unreal. Felt like a backbreaker at first. Everything you see today is unreal. Try it from the soul level and see how simple. In fact, it helps you get to the soul level and to stay there. Because then you can come out from that situation where you're trying to live in the soul level only with your eyes closed, and you can walk the streets in your soul level. And you can look at those things that the eye sees, but in the upper room of your soul, without taking thought. Everything that the physical eye sees today is unreal, but the soul is furnishing the invisible truth of the never-born self that is ever present, everywhere invisible to the human perception. You're supplying the mysterious lost dimension, the invisible four-square universe, which is infinite in every direction and every seeming texture, infinite in its oneness, always behind the visible non-real images. And when you violate the truth that everything you see today is unreal, by believing in the reality of it and reacting to the reality of it without the conscious awareness of your own invisible, never-born, formless self everywhere, then you are stepping out of your soul again, not abiding. And that is not the Son of God. The Son of God does not walk in material streets or in a material body or have material friends. Think of that. The Son of God has no material friends. Son of God has one friend, the Son of God. The Son of God where forms appear. The Son of God where mother appears, and father appears, and son appears, and brother appears, and personal self appears. Only the Son of God walks this earth that is the Lord's. Be my son. And this earth that is the Lord's is thine. For all that I have is the Son's. When you find difficulty in performing the exercises that we call spiritual exercises, remember you're trying to perform them with your mind, and that's the problem. Move above the mind, into the soul, and the correct spiritual position would automatically take over. Welcome the opportunity to have to practice against adversity. Because the only way you're going to overcome it permanently is to turn the problem over to your soul, which knows no problems. And every adversity is forcing you into soul awareness. Instead of wasting human hours trying to accomplish what you cannot accomplish. We all spend much time trying to do what we cannot do. And what must be done, God already has done. In our soul, we know this. In our soul, we can resist the temptation to improve the human images. If you have established firmly, then, the never-born reality of yourself, your child, your mother, your father, and your brother, your government, other governments, other nations, the never-born reality of all who will ever appear on this earth, whether they be from other dimensions or this dimension, whether they have 3 heads or only 1, whether they come in strange bodies or not. Always, the never-born self of you is the only reality. It is the one reality. It is the infinite, eternal Son of God, indestructible forever. It is you. This is your home base, your secret place. And then let the world throw its brickbats at us. Let it throw all of those things that we have considered detrimental to life, all of those things that bear the threat of terminating a life or of forcing it into restricted activity. Let us recognize that we have been fooled. Living outside the never-born self, outside the soul, we have lived in limbo with the passing images, reacting to them, being one of them, and then struggling for our existence, for our daily bread, for our security, for our protection, for a little nest somewhere where we can retire from the cruel outside world. Isaiah, Jeremiah, John the Beloved told us to come forth out of Babylon. Come out of her. And they were speaking of the world belief engendered by the world mind that we walk in physical forms, surrounded by physical objects, some animate, some inanimate, some growing, some not growing, and accepting this world of images as the creation of God. All of that is there to challenge your soul. And if you fight them with your mind and try to overcome them, they will overcome you. Even when you win, you lose. The winning is the decoy that makes you believe you're not losing. You cannot win with your mind. You can only become a nothing. You can pretend for so long. Everything you see today will be unreal unless you see it with your soul. It's hard to swallow. But we don't have any choice. We must swallow it. Because by not swallowing it, we will go out and believe in the unreal. And we will be separated from God. Separated from Source. Separated from soul. We will be a walking mind separated from its own soul, believing in non-existence. If you have not practiced that exercise until you can accept it, you have not caught the meaning of abiding in your soul. Now you must go a step beyond that, because if everything you see with human senses is unreal, then the solution for the improvement of those things you see cannot lie only in the senses, because all you can improve is the unreality. There has to come from within you this other dimension of awareness that what you're trying to improve is invisibly perfect. Whether it's yourself or another individual or another nation, what you're trying to improve must be invisibly perfect. Or else you're improving something that was not created by God. You don't have to improve what God created, and therefore your conscious realization that what God created is present and perfect becomes your acceptance of the identity of the one you are serving and of yourself, and in this you are taking a giant stride into the truth which your soul will enable you to see in a readjusted way. Your soul will ultimately replace mind perception, mind manipulation, and lo and behold, without effort, with nothing more than patience and a knowledge of inner truth, you will perceive the slow or quick readjustment. I hope this is reaching some who need this very desperately. Not only today, but tomorrow. The solution is always present for anything. Underline anything. But it won't come if you are going to live in the visible and accept it and hope that God is going to come and do something about it for you or someone else. When we ask God to do something about something, or we expect God to do something, we are instantly in a state of separation. And you know we all fall into that trap. Innately we have this feeling that God will improve something for us. Stop it. But look at that you want improved, and realize that you have been fooled. God has already made it perfect in its original state. And you are reacting to the world image of it. I know some of you know this. And even when we know this, we constantly are trapped into the need to improve something out there instead of improving our inner perception of the truth of it. Your never-born self is an exercise. There are no real images out there is an exercise. Never improve the image, but instead return to source within yourself, finding your own never-born self, your own eternal self, your own ageless self, your own indestructible self. And then that which had tempted you to improve it has fulfilled its purpose. It has forced you into your soul. And your soul will manifest the divine body. And the more you can rest in this constant returning to soul, as the prodigal returned to the Father's house, ever returning to soul until you go no more out, you will find that never-born self which you have accepted as a principle, as a truth, will be lived in. And you will know when it is performing the greater works. Now I know we can look in the mirror, we can see the outline of a physical form, we can see somewhere where the little muscles have fallen down in certain areas of the face, or the shoulders are tired and sloping, where we're just not up to where we'd like to be. We may even lament a million yesterdays. But look at yourself again. And please, let's not get into these images as ourselves, whether they're in the mirror or in the mirror of our minds. And if we have to lift the eye of other individuals who are in the same boat, who think, look at me, I'm trudging drearily today to the doctor, let's do it. Let's see through their appearance, not necessarily for them, but for our own souls. Let's lift the world. Let's not accept these images. Let's not improve them. Let's not sympathize with them. You can send flowers. You can pat them on the back. You can do all of that outwardly. But I mean, don't you be tricked into sympathy within yourself. You can put a sign on your mind, gone fishing. And in your soul really know the truth, while outwardly you're sympathizing as much as you think you must. Because in your sympathy you're merely digging the grave a little faster and deeper. And in the truth you're lifting the eye. You're being the sun. You're loving, you're blessing. And in this, you're really lifting yourself out of the muck of images that are not divinely governed or ordained or created. And the world mind finds nothing in you. If this is reaching a point of acceptance within you, you should be able now to see that oneness with God is impossible while you are accepting human images as reality. We've all been searching for divine grace, and we've really been asking divine grace too often to come through a human image. And when it doesn't, we think God isn't listening. Or we think we didn't know the right magic words. But divine grace does not come through a human image. Divine grace comes through conscious awareness, through soul consciousness. It has to have the channel, and you have to provide the channel. And you won't provide it as a mortal being. If last night we went home with the idea of waking up this morning with the idea of establishing soul awareness, and if today we do it again, and tomorrow again, when you go home from this seminar, if for one moment you say, I have a bad business or a bad back, it should instantly flash through your consciousness that you're in the old consciousness which was trying to live without its own soul. That's where your bad back is, in the old consciousness. And that's where your bad business is. And that's where every human problem is. All the agony, all the misery, all the frustration lies in the old consciousness which clings to the idea that a human image in some way is connected to divinity. You can't bring life into that which is dead. It's a synthetic. It's not the original. But yet the original is always present. The genuine divine life, divine substance is always you. And it doesn't matter what side of the veil this physical form is on. If you establish the truth of it, it will ever be in your conscious awareness. You can live in an uninterrupted consciousness. Two is death. One is life. To establish oneness with God is to live in the substance of God. And that substance is your substance. Divine substance has been yours before the foundation of the material world. Divine substance is present right here. Let us find this substance. Let it be the substance of what the world calls your business, your back, your emotional disturbances, your anxieties. Let's get all of that junk behind us. Everybody has a bad back at one time or another. I've never met anyone who hasn't, hardly. We can't live that way. So it hurts. Let it hurt. Get into your soul awareness. Get into your incorporeal, never-born self. Have some faith in who you are, who God says you are, and rest there. And to devil with the appearances. Let them hurt. Don't bother with improving them right now. Rest in you, the you that is, the you that can survive anything this world can throw at you, the you that will always be alive. Rest in it. Believe in it. Above the level of mind. It reaches into the substance of God and draws unto itself all that it requires without any human effort. It draws to you whatever is necessary. whether it be a person, a place, or a thing. If there is something that can improve whatever you are in this world, and it's on the other side of the earth, you will be placed there or it will be placed here. You will find each other. After you find yourself in the invisible, if your life has been one of success without the joy that surpasses understanding, that joy will bubble forth from your invisible self when you find that self. But it won't bubble forth into a human being. That love that is beyond human love, if it hasn't come and flowed through you, if you haven't felt it, if you haven't tingled with this knowledge that it is bigger than anything you have ever known, that is a true love. A love that has a divine texture to it. If you haven't felt it, it is because you have not found your own self, in which this love is a permanent dispensation. A love that constantly flows from you, blessing the world. A love that instantly walks through every form of ugliness and blesses it with divinity. So much is in us, awaiting release. But never for a single second when we live in that which is either dead or dying or can be destroyed. You must learn to live in that which is always alive. For that is the secret place that stands in the flood and the fire. In that which is always alive, I and the Father are one. You know, there is no greater blessing in the entire heavenly universe than the truth that in yourself, you and the Father are one. And that self never has to be found, never has to be sought. It is the only self you are. And if you accept another self, you are denying that self. If you accept a self that is not one with God and ever alive, you are saying, I prefer to live in a self that does die, a self that does age, a self that is not one with God. I prefer to live in the self that God says I am not. And yet we have all made that decision. Instinctively, we have gone into the self that is not. We were thrust into it when we were too young to defend ourselves. But we're not 1 minute older than we were at that moment. It only seems that way. The reclaiming takes a minute, and the maintaining and abiding takes a lifetime. Oneness with God in your never-born self, while you stand in your soul, rejecting the visible images of the world, blessing them with understanding, as if you had X-ray vision that could perceive through them, recognizing them as moving shadows. but not being satisfied to dismiss these moving shadows without first establishing that where the moving shadows appear is that perfect invisible substance of God. All space is filled with that perfect invisible substance. There is no void anywhere. Yes, there are shadows in the mind, but where the shadows in the mind seem to be, though they wear mortal form, the immortal self is there, and until you acknowledge it in all your ways, the principle of oneness is not being accepted.